Hey guys, it's John here with Option Lab. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to play earnings with options for all account sizes. So I'm going to first dispel a few myths about playing earnings reports with options, and then go through my strategy for playing earnings that's much higher probability and works for all account sizes. So if you guys are not familiar with who I am, I did 2.2 million in 2024 with option premium selling strategies or theta strategies. And I've been talking to a bunch of you guys in my free Discord. By the way, if the first 10 people to DM me print off this video who join my Discord, I'm sending you guys the cheat sheet that outlines all of the methods that I'm about to explain in this video today for playing earnings reports, as well as the sheet that tracks every single trade I took in 2024. So let's get into this video here. First thing I want to talk about is we're going to differentiate between a small account and a large account, and then kind of go through how to trade earnings reports in each case for a small and large account, and other things to consider, like the expected move, or when should you be a net seller versus a net buyer. So the biggest misconception that I want to dispel, and this is what most people like doing. So let's say there's a stock and there's an upcoming earnings, right? Most people, if there's an upcoming earnings, the average beginner trader says, I'm going to buy an option. So the first thing they do in their head is they say, I'm going to make a directional bet saying it's going to go up or it's going to go down. And then I'm either going to buy a call or buy a put, which, by the way, is going to be expensive because IV is high around earnings. And then they're dependent not only on the move happening in the right direction off of earnings, they're also dependent that it happens in a large enough magnitude and in the right time frame. So how do we create a situation that's much higher probability and does not rely on making a directional bet, right? So that's the beauty of option premium selling strategies, is you don't necessarily have to make a directional bet. So let's start to go through kind of like what I would do in each of these scenarios with both a small and large account, and some of the characteristics of the stock that would make me move towards being a net buyer versus a net seller. So the first thing I want to talk about is a small account, and this value here under 50K is arbitrary, really. I just kind of use it as a reference point, but typically for a smaller account, you want to differentiate first, and this is for both accounts. Does that stock typically beat the expected move that the market predicts for it on an earnings call? So for example, let's say typically the market has predicted a 10% move in Amazon, but then in actuality, over the last 5 earnings, it's really only moved 8%. So it misses the expected move or underperforms it, versus something, say, like maybe Tesla, where the market predicts it moves 10% on earnings, but it actually historically has moved 20% on earnings. So in each of these scenarios, a different option strategy is going to be utilized based on that information. So I'll go through how you could actually determine if it beats or misses, but the first thing I want to talk about is, for a small account, for stocks that typically beat the expected move, we're looking to buy a 20 to 30 delta strangle. Let's discuss what that actually looks like. So let me move this out of the way, and I will draw it out for you guys. Let me get this out of here. So a 20, let's look at this. Let me shrink myself down. Okay. So for stocks typically beat, buy a 20 to 30 delta strangle. So that would look something like this. So here's our stock. We have an upcoming earnings report. And again, we have no idea which direction it's going to move. And if you do have an idea, you're just guessing, right? It's a gamble. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick the 20 to 30 delta put, and you're going to buy that put. And then the 20 to 30 delta call, you're going to do the same thing. Buy one, of the call. And what is the rationale behind this? Well, like we said, if the stock typically outperforms or beats the expected move, then one of these options is going to go extremely high, right? So it either goes way up and this is going to expire worthless and this is going to increase a ton in value, or it's going to tank and this put is going to increase a ton in value and this is going to expire worthless. So in other words, as long as the stock, we're actually completely neutral as to whether or not we want the stock to move up or down. We just care about the magnitude of the move, right? So the market typically underpredicts the move. So typically the stock is then, we're predicting it's going to outperform the prediction. So one of these options is then going to be juiced while the other expires worthless. In the other scenario, for stocks that typically, let me move this over here. For stocks that typically miss the expected move, in other words, the market predicts 15%, but it actually usually only moves 10%, we're going to use what's called an iron condor. So an iron condor really just predicts that we're going to stay between two prices. So if we have a stock here, moves like this, and we're predicting that it's going to stay in between a range because it's going to miss that expected move, so it's not going to move as much as they're predicting, we're going to do this. We're going to pick a call strike price that we think it's going to stay below, and we're going to sell a call there, and then do a protective leg above here, and then we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. We're going to sell a put and buy a put below. So you're really, what you're doing here is you're creating two credit spreads. And the criteria here for actually profiting is it has to stay in between the two legs that you're selling, right? So I like to think of like this as the sandwich that it has to stay between. And as long as that stock stays between your two legs here, both of these are going to expire full profit. And the beautiful thing is, even if it does move outside of the expected range, you'll still collect the premium from one side or another. So it creates a limited risk and limited reward situation because it's an iron condor. But if we're expecting it to miss, we expect it to stay within a range, versus up here with a buying a long strangle, we're predicting it's going to make a big move, so we want to buy options, anticipating that's going to move, significantly. So I hope that makes sense. If you guys are new to this, I have a bunch of stuff in my Discord. Just message me and I can send it to you if you need help. But okay, let's go to kind of like what I am looking at. So I use Bloomberg for this, but you can use Market Chameleon as well. So like if you look on here and you go to Amazon earnings, you could see here that it says the predicted move after earnings announcement was 7.3% versus an average of the actual earnings moves of 7.7%, right? So you could kind of see here, you can use these post-earnings movement to sort of like predict whether or not it's going to be outperform the expected move or miss the expected move. Okay, so let me get out of here and we'll go to the large account. And by the way, the reason we're using iron condors in this case is because it is smaller account friendly, right? So for a larger account, we're actually going to employ most of the same principles with one change. So again, this is a pretty arbitrary number, but for stocks that typically beat the expected move, remember this, in this situation, we want it to have a huge move in either direction. We don't care which. We're buying a 20 to 30 delta strangle. And for stocks that typically miss the expected move, we're selling a 20 delta iron condor. So it's the exact same as the small account. However, if you do have a large enough account, you can start to sell a strangle, right? So selling a strangle would be, actually here, let me draw it. Let me move down here so I can have more room. So selling a strangle would look something like this. So we have a stock, and let's actually compare it with an iron condor, right? So here's your stock. An iron condor, I don't know why this isn't, oh, there we go. So an iron condor would look something like this. +1 call, -1 put, +1 put. So that's the iron condor. It has the protective legs, but selling a strangle would essentially remove the two protective legs and leave us with a naked put and a naked call. Now, keep in mind, if you have a larger account, you might be able to stomach getting assigned 100 shares of stock if that price moves below your strike price by expiration, or be prepared to be short shares if it skyrockets and goes above your call strike price by expiration. In either case, you're making far more net premium with having two naked legs rather than the two protective legs, right? Because if you have the protective legs, that's two debits that you're paying out, as opposed to with the strangle, you're just collecting pure premium. And theoretically, since you're collecting more premium, you can actually move further out of the money. So right here, since I have a larger account, this is what I'm typically doing. I'm going somewhere all the way down to the 10 to 20 delta, meaning that's about an 80 to 90% probability that the stock doesn't actually make that large of a move. And I collect both premiums at expiration. So if we're going naked, right, and we're selling cash secured puts or naked calls, we want to move further out because we don't really want to be assigned short shares or long shares in this case. So in reality, if we want to summarize, the first thing we want to look at is, does the stock beat or miss the expected move on average over time? If it does, we pay out a debit to buy a 20 to 30 delta strangle, expecting a large move in either direction. Or in the case that it misses the expected move more often than not, we want to be a net seller and either sell to open an iron condor, which has the ceiling and the floor that we predict the stock is going to stay between because we're expecting a lesser move than predicted. Or if we have a larger account, in this case, if we have a larger account, we can sell a 10 to 20 delta strangle, moving further out, collecting more premium, but giving ourselves less risk because we don't want to be assigned on a naked put or a naked call. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. If you stayed this long in the video, pop in the Discord my option selling cheat sheet. I'll send it to you guys for free. It has all of this laid out nicely for you guys. So yeah, hit me up in Discord if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.